Good morning. We can see the moon here over this palm tree, ready to set behind Mount Arbel. But if you go up on top of Mount Arbel, it would be up there for another hour in the distance, obviously. We're close to the mountain here, so it hides everything that passes by, the sun and the moon and the stars and their orbits. It's interesting, as the sun goes north, we have to go further south to get the reflection on this window. Different circumstances, different angles in life. Yesterday, a lady who brings groups from Chicago typically was here, and she's a faithful follower of the live streams. It's interesting when people tell what it means for them. And she watches with her husband, who didn't come on this trip. He came with a videographer who was helping to make more content to share, to encourage people to come. We also had a wedding yesterday here in Duckenalton of an Arab Christian family in Melkite. Very joyful, wearing their crowns as part of the wedding ceremony. I must get the text of the prayer for those crowns when they put them on. I was there in the space with some other visitors at that time, and I saw 2 minutes of the wedding ceremony when they were putting the crown on the bride. It was already placed on the groom, and there were certain motions the priest was doing, and obviously prayers. I had quite a few visitors yesterday. Very interesting. And different encounters, some longer, some shorter. Oops. So today we continue with our readings, and we have Paul and Barnabas coming back, retracing steps, back to Antioch. Oh no, we're continuing the. Yesterday we had the big presentation of all the history of God's work with the chosen people, and that wonderful summary of major highlights that Paul does, and then he's coming to his grand climax and addressing them as children of Abraham, children of the family of Abraham, and also including others who are God-fearing. So then Gentiles. And he calls it, to us was given this word of salvation. many words are spoken in life. Many words are given. And words of salvation. It's a very strong term. Very rich term. Words of salvation when we take up the scriptures. We are not just entertainment, not just cultural widening of horizons. It's a word of salvation. Not just distraction, it's a word of salvation. Precious word, a word that has extraordinary significance for our lives. And then he starts talking about basically the Easter message. The inhabitants of Jerusalem and their leaders failed to recognize him. In Galilee, the Jewish folks would refer to the inhabitants of Jerusalem as Jews in Judea. And by condemning him, they fulfilled the oracles of the prophets that are read Sabbath after Sabbath. So that's also a summary statement about all of the scriptures, the Torah and the prophets, that they also had just read there in the synagogue on that day. And the way Paul summarizes them is that they were oracles that were going to come to fulfillment. And their poor decision, actually, God used this for their fulfillment. The poor decision of the leaders. Unbeknownst to them, they were actually fulfilling the plan of God. Even their own resistance became a vehicle of salvation. Their own selfishness, their own particular, peculiar response. God availed of it to do good. Sometimes children mess up. They have fights, they have bad moments. And the parents who are wise don't just shout and condemn. They help the children to read their actions and their way as a lesson of wisdom about life, a discovery of the truth of life, the importance of things, the lesser importance of other things, which we sometimes exaggerate in importance, a discovery of life, of wisdom, of prudence, of behavior. And we're actually all discovering that as we go along. We all make mistakes. The wise people learn from them and grow. And maybe sometimes it's not just growing in knowledge because we know already, but it's growing in humility. And accepting the fact that I made a mistake, that I did wrong, that I was selfish. And we're always learning and reading our lives in a positive way, also as a word of salvation that God is allowing us to ponder and that reaches us with abundant fruit. everywhere, in every action, in every branch of life, in every little growth. There is a gift of salvation waiting for us. New seeds getting ready to fly and start a new life, a new tree. The blessing of life when the pods open. Sometimes they fall into the soup pot, and sometimes they fall into the earth and make new plants come. God is a God of creation, a God of salvation, a God of redemption. The abundance of blessing, of fruit. See, these are relatively small, very small. A bit bigger than peas, the size of chickpeas, tasting like apples. Even little things the size of chickpeas can be a big blessing, little things that happen in our lives, small things. But obviously these were big things that they did in Jerusalem. It was a very consequential series of events that happened on Holy Thursday, Good Friday. Even the burial was very consequential. But God raised him from the dead, and for many days he appeared to those who had come up with him. So after the summary of all of the prophets, the Torah and the prophets, now we have a summary of the events of the Passion. And, you know, these Acts of the Apostles this is like the very first foray of Paul and Barnabas into Europe. And right now in Asia Minor, in Turkey, and in Antioch, Pisidia. And they're formulating the core message of the gospel, and they're announcing it. And there's a word that's often used for that, the kerygma, the announcement. And it's part of the Christian gift to the world is to make this announcement that he died, he was tortured unjustly, he was condemned to death unjustly, he was buried, but he rose again. And for many days he appeared to those who had come up with him from Galilee to Jerusalem. And they are now his witnesses. And we ourselves are proclaiming this good news. This is the kerygma, the good news. And they're proclaiming it with boldness, with courage, with strength, not shy, not embarrassed, not timidly. And Francis of Assisi, 1200 years later, would say, we are always announcing this, and sometimes with words. So our lifestyle is an announcement of this. The way we read life, the way we process life, the way we react to life is a proclamation of the death and resurrection of our Lord. This is the core of the Christian identity. A Jewish man asked me yesterday from a mixed group that was here from Colorado, and how do I the Christian message is to proclaim Christ, so how can we have good relationships with the Jews? It would mean we couldn't proclaim Christ to them. It was a very interesting conversation. And I quoted to him Rabbi David Rosen. I remember once when Pope Benedict was coming to Jerusalem, or maybe it was Pope Francis, and he had a special talk at the YMCA in Jerusalem for all interested to come. There were a lot of different active people in faith circles were present, also from different churches, and also a lot of Jewish people. And he said to them, it's a mistake for the Jews to try and expect the church not to announce Christ, not to spread that message, because that's the reason and the core reason for the existence of the church. And if you recall 2 weeks ago, preparing the conclave, one of the points that was made very clearly, it's like basic, is that we're looking at the primary purpose of the church and of the Pope is to announce the resurrection of Christ, to proclaim it. It's the core purpose, and that can't be quieted and silenced. And at the same time then for the Jewish people, because of a lot of historical factors and a relationship, the announcement we give is our lifestyle. It's not an aggressive verbal approach. It's to show the resurrection in our life. And many times we have compromised lives as Christians and we don't show it that well. We hide it. I read a little text from actually Pope Leo's talk to the Eastern churches a couple of days ago, and he quotes one of the great ancient Eastern church saints who said that many times a lot of dust is thrown on our lifestyle because of our attitudes and affections, material things and ambitions and jealousies and envies, and that shrouds the gift of annunciation, the proclamation that's in our lives for the world. And that needs to be refreshed and renewed periodically in our own lives, weekly sometimes, monthly, daily, yearly, in decades and centuries as well. A lot of dust can accumulate on a Christian community, and we need to be shaken up and get going again. Oh, look at this here. And they're going all the way across here. They're going up the wall here. So there's a lot of activity in there between these big stones. And I don't know where they're coming from. This track goes over to here. And they're going down here, and I see them still crossing over to here. So I think our time is up today. We didn't get further than this, but it's a lot. And there are beautiful lines in the Gospel reading today about heaven. In my Father's house there are many mansions, many rooms, many places. And apparently in the temple, I heard a commentary this morning mentioning how in the temple there were many, many different pieces and places and rooms, storage, and even living room, and obviously the major spaces of the temple. In my Father's house there are many rooms. I'm going to prepare a place for you. And this commentary went on to share a custom that when a young man would get married, there was the betrothal ceremony, but he wouldn't take his wife to live with him. He needed to go and prepare a room for them to live in, usually in his father's house. And that custom is still here in the Arab population here, native population here in the Middle East, and you see they have a flat roof, and it's to put another floor on it, and the children have floors in their father's house. Very interesting cultural heritage, probably going back to these ancient times. So the church is living in that time when Jesus is gone to prepare a place for us. That's our time of waiting, of expectation for his coming to take us to him forever in the Father's house. People, God bless you. See you later, alligators. There's a lot more in the readings we didn't get to today. I delayed more where I didn't anticipate I would, but there we are. So here we are also at Mount Arbel there, the southern cliffs. And now we can say goodbye to the sunrise at the Sea of Galilee this morning, you can. I'm still here. And Instagram follows. God bless you.